Hey friends, I'm Jess Connolly. I'm an author, a coach, a Bible teacher, and a local church leader, and I love talking to real people who know what it means to have full lives, but also want to walk in abundance. This podcast is for you. It's not my podcast, it's ours. It's for people who crave lighthearted conversations and deeply spiritual truth. It's for people who are busy, tired, waiting, growing, dreaming, working, or praying about what's next. Wherever you're listening from, if it's quiet, mundane, or busy, I am praying for you, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. Listen, no one has ever accused me of being a minimalist. I like stuff. But with that being said, we have been in a series called Simple and Supernatural, and we're talking about the small shifts that help us move out of chaos and into clarity with God's help. And so today, I'm talking about spending less. Spending less is one way we can preach to our soul, I have enough. God is enough. I want to spend less and live more, not in a hustle, deprivation, cut everything kind of way, but in a holy and grounded, live lighter and trust God deeper kind of way. I'm going to share a quick update about how the digital detox has been working, our last Simple and Supernatural episode, and then I'm going to move into some practical ways I am trying to spend less with my money, but also with my energy, my attention, and for my soul. So if you've ever looked at your life and thought, I'm exhausted and there's so much here and I'm still not full, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Okay, friends, on our most recent episode, Simple and Supernatural Digital Detox, I talked really a lot about this goal for me, for my life, for this whole year of where I want to live more simple so I can experience the supernatural in a more compelling way. If you haven't listened to episode 78, I would suggest going back to that. I talk a little bit about my own personal digital detox, what I'm doing to be on my phone less, why I'm trying to be on my phone less. And I thought maybe it might be helpful to just give a quick little check-in about how that part of simple and supernatural living is going so far. So I've got some highs and I've got a couple of lows. So here are my highs. Number one, I would say in the last few weeks, since I've been making a really concerted effort to be on my phone less. First of all, I want to say this. I shared on that episode that one of the ways that I'm tracking this is checking in with my screen time. And I would like to give a screen time update right now. This is wild, but if you didn't know, the average iPhone screen time in the US is 7 hours and 3 minutes a day, which is pretty wild, 7 hours and 3 minutes a day. So I will say, as of right now, my daily average on my phone for screen time is 3 hours and 2 minutes. But when I check my phone, it tells me that percentage is down 52%. So I feel really grateful and excited about that and really thankful. And then obviously then I can track where most of that time is going. So I'm thankful to say that my screen time is officially coming down, but here are some of the highs and lows that I've noticed in the efforts I've been making. Number one, I'm so much more aware of my emotions. I can't get over it. I think I've had more observations about my emotions. I've been more aware of what I'm feeling. And for me, there's just been a really direct connection between not numbing through the phone and actually experiencing my emotions in real time. I would say I've seen an increase in my capacity for critical thinking, which is I shared in the episode. That was a real pain point for me. I wanted to be able to increase my capacity for critical thinking. I actually wanted to share this story because a couple of my friends know, but recently I went to a music festival with my son. And I'm going to give it to you straight. Music festival is not my scene. Like, that's not my jam. I'm not someone who would ever say, like, I love live music. In general, crowds kind of make me feel a little anxious. I like music, but I like it just fine in my house by myself where I can control the volume. But I love my son and I love my friends. And so I often find myself, not often, but, increasingly frequently I find myself in experiences where I'm listening to live music. All that being said, my son wanted to go to a music festival for his birthday. So I bought tickets. Well, guess what? When we got to the music festival, the first day we were there, we were going to be there from about 2 p.m. until 11 p.m. And the first day when we got there, I was so excited about our Mother Sunday. And I had a couple of friends that I was going to meet up with that he's friends with. But as soon as we got there, we realized his friends were there. So he immediately went off with his friends. And I was like, hey, is this what you want? Like, you want to go hang with your friends? And he was like, yes, Mom, I want to go hang with my friends. So then I had a period of a couple hours where my friends were busy. Like, some of them had young kids. They were taking their kids home and then coming back without their kids. So I was just kind of at the music festival by myself. And I also happened to have a paper due, a seminary paper due. And so I'm going to tell you guys what I did. I laid on a blanket in the sun. I turned my phone off. I turned it onto like airplane mode. I couldn't turn it off, but I turned it onto airplane mode. And before I turned it onto airplane mode, I really read the syllabus for the paper I was going to write. I read the passage of scripture on the Bible app that I really wanted to look at. I just kind of did a little bit of research on my phone. And then I put my phone on airplane mode and I laid in the sun on the blanket, like listening to music in the distance. And I wrote what I perceived might be one of the best papers I've written in my seminary career. And anyways, I just wanted to note that I was absolutely on my phone as I was doing that. But having my phone on airplane mode and also being in a place where I was a couple weeks in to having the capacity for more critical thinking because I'm watching less reels, etc., has been incredibly helpful. Also, I'm in the middle right now of writing a 15-page paper for seminary. And I will also note that I have marked out loud multiple times to my husband, I don't know if seminary is getting easier or if I'm just getting better at it or if I just really enjoy this paper. But what usually feels really difficult for me, thinking kind of obtuse and heavy thoughts about a theological subject, is usually just feels like, headache inducing. And it's felt actually really joyful. And I just want to capture, maybe that is also being on my phone less. So I'm aware of my emotions. I feel like I'm experiencing my critical thinking going up in a positive direction. And as I shared in the episode, the biggest way I'm changing my screen time is putting my phone on the other side of the house and putting it up for bed well before I go to bed, and then not picking it up, not getting it from the charger until well after I'm awake in the morning. And it has really shifted the way I go to bed and the way that I wake up. I feel a lot less on the hook. I feel a lot less anxious. And so I'm really grateful for that. Now, here are some lows. The first low is this. I'm so behind on text, I don't know that I'm ever going to catch up. I don't answer them quickly. And I've tried really hard not to apologize about that because I don't feel like it's a sin, but I'm 10 times worse. I'm 10 times worse than I was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and I really don't know what to do about it. I will say this is also me doing more of a digital detox has also coincided with a season in my life where I was in a car wreck and I'm not immediately buying a new car because my car was totaled. And so I'm sharing a car with my husband and my daughter, and I'm walking a lot more. I'm walking to actually get places a lot more often, and I'm riding my bike to get there instead of driving my car. I don't have as much transition time, which I would normally maybe send like a voice memo as I'm driving into work or something like that. And all that being said, I don't know that I'm ever coming back from how behind on text I am. I'm sure I'll figure it out, or I won't, or I'll just get comfortable with it. But that is definitely a downside. And I would say no one in my life has brought it up to me. I've had a few friends mention, like, you do seem a lot less accessible, even more than you were. But nobody seems to necessarily be complaining about it. So we'll figure it out. I don't know. We'll see. That being said, after the update on the digital detox and that version of Simple and Supernatural, let's talk a little bit about spending less and living more. So I said this in the intro, no one's ever going to accuse me of being a minimalist. I don't live a minimalist life. I love fullness. I love color. I love things. I love stuff. But I also love freedom, and I want to live as free as I can as a follower of Jesus. I want to live free from fear and anxiety about finances. I want to live free from the cultural overwhelm that seems like a nonstop torrent to all of our brains and souls. I want to live free to experience more gratitude and more creativity. And so I have known for a while that this is a part of my life where I'm going to have to press into maybe even like I will have to experience some limitations, but I believe the limitations are hopefully, prayerfully, I believe faithfully going to lead to more freedom. Here are some of the questions I am really asking myself. Number one, where do you find yourself overextending? That would be one helpful question to ask. Number two, where are you trying to meet your own needs? Number three, this is the big one for me. Where are you trying to find comfort or safety? And then lastly, I would ask this, like, where, especially in your spending, are you maybe trying to make yourself feel or seem enough? So my big issue in all of this in spending, I would say my main two issues is number one, I'm kind of always trying to find comfort and safety. We talked a little bit about this on episode 70 that came out in February, where I interviewed the author of the book, 7 Primal Questions. And if you haven't listened to that episode, I cannot suggest it enough. It's an incredible episode. I love the 7 Primal Questions and have been using it as a tool for the last couple of years. But my primal question is, am I safe? And so I have noticed also, again, for the past couple of years, that money and spending is an area where I try to make myself feel safe. The main way that this manifests in my life that maybe people don't even see is that I always want a backup for everything. I really always want the next available item when I run out of the item that I need. I want extra paper towels at all times. I want extra toilet paper at all times. I want extra Q-tips at all times. I'm not in any way, shape, or form like a hoarder or a stockpiler because I also really enjoy organization. But I do want to know that there's going to be enough. And I think that that often becomes a spiritual issue for me, if I'm honest. I think some of it has to do with a poverty mentality. I think some of it has to do with having experienced poverty in my past, literal financial poverty. So I just think there's some poking there for me with the Holy Spirit of like, do I want this to be what keeps making me feel safe? And then I would say the other real main issue for me is that I think a lie that I struggle with is that because I work a lot or because I live on mission or because I find myself serving or leading in multiple areas, that I have to take care of comforting myself. And one easy way to do that is through spending money. Almost the lie sounds like this, like you're showing up for everybody else, you're speaking into everybody else's life, so just treat yourself. But it can sound like that over and over and over again. And then what I find is number one, I'm missing out on the abundance that just comes from obeying God and that there is just actual abundance from obeying God. Number two, I'm going to tell you a real struggle here, and I've talked to my husband a lot about this, is that sometimes I will work past and serve past and lead past my own healthy limits and boundaries and borders because I know that I can treat myself on the back end. So I'll work too many hours or I'll push too hard or I will not rest enough because I'm like, well, I know I'm going to just like treat myself with a little online shopping tonight, which is not the way I want to live, extended past my own boundaries and borders. And also, I'm missing out on God as comforter rather than silly little thing from Amazon that I don't really need as comforter. So those are the two main issues that I'm like, man, there's just an opportunity here. I share all of this without shame and certainly without condemnation for any way that you might struggle with it, because it just feels like an opportunity of there's room to grow here. There's more for me to learn here. And I'm excited to press into it. So all that being said, I have 3 practical invitations for you, and then a couple of kind of spiritual invitations, spiritual questions for us. And then I'm going to share the personal shifts that I am making specifically this summer so I can come back and give a little bit of update about how those are working for me. So, in researching for this episode and in kind of looking around and really asking, okay, how would we become people who spend less to live more? How would we live into the simple in the physical things in our life so we can experience more of the supernatural? One of the top tips that I came up with that I continually heard from different sources was pausing before you purchase can have a massive, massive positive outcome on the amount with which you find yourself spending. So a lot of different sources suggested a 24-hour rule. Maybe before you buy something online, before you buy something in a store, like unplugging and plugging it back in, saying, do I still want this? Why do I want this? Is this a good deal? Am I making an emotional decision? Am I buying something out of scarcity mentality? Is this the exact one I want? Do I want to research it first? But just taking a 24-hour pause before you purchase something can be incredibly meaningful. Here is what I would suggest after kind of reading a little bit about this. We've talked in past episodes about just the power of writing things down, that the real physical power that comes when we physically write something down. And so something that I think might be helpful here is maybe even in a journal before you make a purchase, and maybe you have a limit in your head. Maybe you say like, hey, anything over $10, I'm going to do this for. Maybe for you, it's $100. Maybe anything over $100, I'm going to take a 24-hour pause. I think you know your limit of like, hey, anything under this amount, I can kind of spend it without thinking. And that limit is going to be different for everybody else. And I don't know that it's necessarily always a budget question of like, what's your limit, but maybe even more of like an impulse. Like, what's your impulse? What does your mind tell you? Like, hey, I can spend this much money. And maybe if you would say like, hey, I need to think about any purchase I spend over $100, maybe you should make yours 10, just to pause and get into the habit of pausing before you purchase. But all that being said, what I think would be really interesting is if you answered this question, maybe even making yourself write it down in a journal. Why do I want this item? And if you can write a thoughtful one-sentence description of like, why do I want this item? Maybe you need to share that with a spouse or a partner. Maybe you want to share it with a friend. Maybe just even writing it down with you and the Lord is enough for you to just process out loud. But the practical invitation here is to be people who pause before we purchase. Here's the second huge practical invitation that I think is going to be a game changer for many of us. Audit your inputs. So in auditing our input, we are asking ourselves, where am I being marketed to? What is influencing my desires? And I will tell you that when you do a little bit of a digital detox first, and you maybe spend a little bit less time being sold to on your phone, this will feel a little bit more simple. I can tell you, like, I don't know what the cute new shoe is for summer. I really don't know. And I'm grateful for that because maybe last year I might have been like, oh, I know what the cute new shoe is and I want it. Maybe even a couple months ago, I would have thought like, I know what the new shoe is that I need. But I'm finding a lot more joy in being a lot less influenced by people on the internet who are telling me I need this new thing. I need this new style. My living room should look like this. My vacation should feel like this. My summer should look like this. My hair should look like this. My glasses should look like this. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes the most spiritual thing you and I can do is just hit unsubscribe. So maybe even imagine if you not only said like, hey, I'm going to start pausing before I purchase. I'm going to start taking 24 hours before I buy something, before I say yes to something, maybe anything that's over $10. But also on top of that, I'm going to just do a massive audit of where I'm being sold to, maybe unsubscribing in my email, maybe unfollowing on social media, maybe doing a digital detox before I even try to do a spending detox so that I'm just ready and able. What's wild is that in just doing these two things, in like pausing and just asking thoughtful questions, I find in a not shameful way, in a not condemnation-based way, we will experience so much more passion and energy and excitement about spending less, I think, because it will just come more simply to us. So I would advocate for maybe muting influencers that are making you feel like you don't have enough, or maybe unsubscribing from emails that you notice like, oh, I'm always going to click on that one. I'm always going to feel like I should have something. But by wanting less, we may find ourselves spending less. And I would say by wanting less, we might also find ourselves wanting more of God, or wanting more of the things of the kingdom, wanting more of the things that are going to last forever, wanting more of what the moths and rust will not destroy. So number one, the practical invitation is to pause before you purchase. Number two, audit your inputs. Here's number three, get grateful. If you have listened to the Jess Connolly podcast for any amount of time, you have probably heard me say that I think that a gratitude practice is game-changing. And I also think that it's something that a lot of people nod along at and maybe a lot less people actually engage in. I just cannot advocate strongly enough for having a gratitude practice. For me, it looks like starting with my journal. First thing, I make myself at least write 5 things. Usually I end up writing more. And the thing about a gratitude practice is that what we often say around Go and Tell Gals in our office and coaching is that we'll say, like, if you don't have a rhythm for noticing what God's given you, you may begin to believe that He hasn't given you anything. If you don't have a rhythm to notice the fruit that He's grown in your life, you may be tempted to believe there is no fruit. And so what's wild is really being intentional about noticing and calling out the fruit, and maybe, again, even physically writing it down every single day, is that you just move into the day kicking that feeling of lack in the teeth, and instead starting from a place of an awareness of your own abundance. I cannot advocate enough for a gratitude practice. And isn't it wild that in talking about spending less, like, we're not talking about anything heavy yet. We haven't really talked about budgets, though I will talk about them in a second. We haven't talked about like cutting up credit cards. We haven't talked about, all these kind of huge shifts, but instead just pausing before you purchase, auditing your inputs, and then placing a gratitude practice into your day. And I would just say those 3 things, inputting those 3 beautiful and thoughtful things into your life, might actually make this huge shift in how much you spend. We've already touched on this a little bit, but again, maybe let's just speak into a little bit of the spiritual side of what could happen when we spend less to live more. I wonder if for many of us, God is trying to show us His provision in new and fresh ways. One thing that has driven me a little bit nuts about my husband, but now that I've grown to love, is I find it comes up often in this one thing, not just if we want to make a big purchase, but often if I want to go on a trip or a vacation, I will pitch it to Nick, like, okay, I want to go on this family vacation. Let's get a little cabin in the woods for a couple of days. Or like, hey, babe, I want to go on this vacation for our 20th anniversary. And what Nick will often say when I come to him with a plan and a budget is he will often say, like, I love that idea. Can we pray for God to just provide in a supernatural way first? Can we just stop and pray? And he's like, because who knows? Maybe a friend offers us their second home for a little stay, or maybe we get a tax refund or something that we weren't expecting. This literally has driven me nuts for 20 years because I'm like, well, we could pray about it, but also we could also just go with the plan. We could also just go with the plan and do the thing. And now I have to say, now I love that he does this. Now I love that he is such a pauser. So for example, for our 20th anniversary this summer, we are so excited. We're going to Portugal for our 20th anniversary. This will be our 3rd time to Lisbon. And we're so pumped. We love it there. It's just a city that is like so our pace. We're so excited. Well, I went with Nick's plan first. The very first time I've went with Nick's plan first and just prayed about it first. Really just asked God, like, hey, this is what sounds good to me, but what sounds good to you? What would be good for this? And I am so thrilled to tell you that if all goes as now is planned, I think this will be the first trip that we go 100% on credit card points for our travel and credit card points for our hotels. As of right now, we don't have any money budgeted And that's taken like a little bit of strategy. That's obviously taken a little bit of planning to say like, okay, how many credit card points do we need? We have been renovating this house, so we have had the credit card points. You know what I'm saying? But it's been the first time ever that I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I don't just like get excited about something and book a ticket. I'm so glad that I've gone with his plan and said like, how will this work? And now we're about to go on a free vacation. And I'm so incredibly thankful. Here's a second spiritual point about spending less. I wonder if for many of us, God is maybe pruning some scarcity thinking or some control-based behaviors. If he is maybe just saying like, hey, there's something here I want to challenge and I want to speak into, and I want you to notice your emotions about it. I want you to notice maybe what your functional theology looks like here. And there may be an invitation to grow. And then lastly, I just think for all of us, there's going to be a fresh invitation to trust him as provider, as comforter, and source of all joy. What's making us feel like our life is fun? Is it stuff? Is it a new little piece of plastic from Amazon? Or is it the joy of our salvation, rising up and being remembered in our hearts? Okay, here are my 3 personal shifts. So I shared those kind of like symbol shifts that you could take, but this is what I want to come back and report on in just a couple of months. So my number 1 thing that I am terrified to say out loud, but I'm going to say it out loud right now. I don't have a start date to when I'm going to begin this, and I don't have an end date to when I'm going to begin this. But I'm going to tell you that the start date is going to be in the month of May, and the end date is going to be in August. But I am going to take a break from Amazon for the summer. I have noticed that it is my number 1 go-to when I'm not being thoughtful about money. Because of the beautiful, wonderful algorithm on Amazon, if I go for one thing, I want 4. I used to say that Amazon for me was better than going to Target, because if I went to Target, then I would like notice 10 other things I wanted. But Amazon, that algorithm's too good now. So it knows me too good. I go on and look for, shampoo, and I end up buying a belt. And that's not it. I got to pause on that. So I'm going to take a summer Amazon break. Obviously, my family will probably still have an Amazon account because we do use it for a lot of essentials. But I'm actually even going to try to be really thoughtful in my essentials of like, hey, if I am noticing that I need shampoo, not extra shampoo, but if I need shampoo, is there a way that I can like move my body and go to a store and go get it? Just so that I'm just being more thoughtful with my purchases. But if there's something that I absolutely need from Amazon, I'm going to ask a family member to get it. And I'm going to log out on my phone for the summer of the Amazon app and Amazon on Safari, because, I'll find a workaround if I can. So I'm going to take an Amazon break for the summer. The second big thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to a summer capsule wardrobe. This is something I used to do a lot in my blogger days. I'd have a summer capsule wardrobe and, a fall capsule wardrobe, a winter capsule wardrobe. And I'd say like, hey, these 8 to 10 pieces, like this is basically what I'm going to wear all summer. This is going to be my uniform. I have a small addendum of I am still doing Nuuly as a clothing subscription service. I don't know, y'all. Nuuly has still been just like one of the best things ever for my budget. So I don't have any plans to stop doing Nuuly as a subscription service. It has really been a game changer for me and how I dress and like how I dress thoughtfully. It's also just sustainable in so many different ways because you're not buying from fast fashion, etc. All that being said, I'm going to reinstitute a summer capsule wardrobe, which I'm actually going to share on my Substack in the coming weeks. So you can check that out in the Fully Awake Women's Club. But I'm going to share my capsule wardrobe. Hey, here are the 8 to 10 pieces I'm going to wear all summer. Plus, I will also still be getting Nuuly, which will be 6 items once a month. And then here's the last personal shift I'm making is rather than planning and budgeting only big things in my life, I'm a pretty good big budget planner. I'm going to get more fastidious in planning and budgeting for all things. So rather than saying like, hey, I'm doing it, just doing a complete spending freeze, I'm not spending any money. I know that there are parts of my life, there are things that I use, there are different products, there are different things that I love, but I'm going to get really intentional about planning and budgeting for them. So for example, y'all have heard me talk on the podcast about Magic Mind. I am still going to keep budgeting for Magic Mind because even though I'm feeling the need to pause and spend less and be intentional with my purchases and checking in what I need, I'm going to tell you the thing about Magic Mind is because it is a supplement that helps my cognitive function so much. It's really become a go-to for helping me slow down and think more clearly. And it's one thing that helps me stay focused on my goals without getting overwhelmed or making impulsive decisions. And it helps me stay grounded. So again, rather than being like, okay, spending freeze, I'm cutting all these things out, I'm just budgeting more intentionally for them. So for example, I was working on my budget the other day and I was like, all right, let me make sure I put Magic Mind in here. I'll make sure we share this in the show notes, but just FYI, Magic Mind is doing a 50% off discount code with my code, which is JessCon, JESSCON 50. JESSCON 50. I'll put that in the show notes. I'll make sure we get that in there because I don't want you guys to miss that. But I'm just trying to be thoughtful about the things, the kind of cornerstones of like, hey, these are products that I love that do really help me live more simple and supernatural. And instead of just saying like, I'm not doing them anymore, I'm just trying to budget with them and be thoughtful about even the smaller things such as supplements. So my personal shifts, summer Amazon break, summer capsule wardrobe, and planning and budgeting everything, including the small stuff. All that being said, let's kind of go back over all of this and let me give you just some last couple encouragements. If you are a person who wants to spend less to live more, just a reminder that this isn't about shame. It is about freedom. It's about living fully awake. It's about experiencing more of God. It's about experiencing more gratitude. It's about experiencing more contentment. And simple doesn't have to mean small. Living more simple, even in our finances, doesn't have to mean small. It often will mean more sacred. And then my challenge, my invitation to you would be maybe just try one step of something you've heard. And I would love for you to report back to me. Send me an email, send me a DM, let me know how it's going. And I'll report back in a couple of months and tell you how my simple and supernatural spending less to live more plan is going. Let me pray for us. Father, thank you for just your patience and your love with us. Thank you that you are our provision, that you are our joy, that you are our comfort, that you are generous with us. Please help us to experience that, especially in the way that we spend, in the way that we want, in the way that we fill our lives so we can experience your fullness in Jesus' name. Amen.
Friends, I'm so grateful you listened to today's episode. Thanks for spending time with me. It would mean the world to me to connect with you. So you can send me a DM on Instagram at Jess A. Connolly or head to my website, jessconnolly.com for more ways to connect. If you have a minute to subscribe and leave a review of the podcast wherever you listen, it would massively help us reach more people with the good news that they can live fully awake. Let's go.